Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive today?
Always.
Awesome. So we're diving into Start With Why by Simon Sinek. You guys sent over some excerpts from the book.
Yep, and some customer reviews too.
Reviews. Always love to see what other people think. So we're going to unlock those secrets of inspirational leadership. See how these concepts can work for you, even if you aren't, running a whole company.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I find so intriguing about Sinek's work, right?
Hmm.
It's not just about go find your why. He actually provides a framework for how this why operates,
Mm-hmm.
like how it can impact, everything from just your own personal motivation to these huge corporate decisions. And that's where this idea of the golden circle comes in.
Okay, the golden circle. Now, I have to admit, when I first heard about that, I was like, three little circles, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
But then when you actually start digging into it, you really see how this simple framework can actually reveal some deep truths about how we communicate, like how we connect with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's really fascinating about it is that it sort of highlights how often we get it backwards.
Right.
Like most of us, whether we're pitching a product or presenting an idea, even to try to convince our friends to watch a certain movie, we tend to start with the what, right? Like, here's what I do, here's what this product is, here's what this movie is about, and then maybe we move on to the how, right? We kind of explain how we do things differently, how our product is better, how this movie will blow your mind.
Yeah.
But what Sinek argues is that truly inspiring leaders and organizations, they flip this.
They start with why.
Exactly.
But it's not just a company mission statement or some feel-good slogan on a product. It's tapping into that deeper sense of purpose. It's connecting with people's beliefs and values and inspiring them to act because they believe in the why behind what you're doing.
Absolutely. And what I find particularly insightful is how Sinek connects this to this idea of manipulation versus inspiration, right?
Okay, now this is where it gets interesting for me. I've always been a little bit skeptical of marketing tactics. I feel like some companies are just trying to trick me into buying their stuff. But I never really had the framework for understanding why some approaches felt, authentic and others just felt manipulative.
Right. And that's exactly what it gives us, this way to distinguish between those who are genuinely trying to inspire us, right, versus those who are simply trying to manipulate us into making a decision.
Okay, so let's talk manipulation. What are some of the tactics that Sinek actually calls out?
Oh, he mentions things like, those limited time offers.
Yeah.
Trying to create that sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Or even fear-based advertising.
Right.
Things that play on our insecurities.
Oh, yeah.
Even something as seemingly harmless as celebrity endorsements, right, can actually be a form of manipulation if it's not actually backed by a genuine belief in the product or the service.
Yeah. So basically, if a company is relying on these kinds of tactics, it's a bit of a red flag that they might not have a strong why behind what they're doing. They're trying to kind of bypass the emotional connection and go straight for the sale.
Exactly. And in the long run, that's just not sustainable, right?
Yeah.
You might see a spike in sales from a clever marketing campaign or whatever, but true loyalty that comes from connecting with people on the level of why.
This makes me think about Apple again. They're constantly being imitated, but people still line up for their products. And I think it's because they've managed to create this aura around their brand that's about more than just, specs and features. It's about creativity. It's about innovation, challenging the status quo. And that really resonates with people on a deeper level.
Exactly. And it's almost as if once you understand a company's why, you can almost predict their future actions.
Interesting.
Right.
Which actually brings us to an interesting point from one of the customer reviews we mentioned, right? The reviewer loved Sinek's TED Talk, but they found the book a bit redundant. Do you think there's something to be said for getting the core message across in that concise, impactful way, even if it means sacrificing some of the nuance and bling?
Oh, that's such a fascinating question. I think it kind of speaks to the power of different mediums for communicating ideas. A TED Talk is like a lightning bolt, right? It hits you with a powerful idea in a short amount of time. But a book Start With Why, it allows for that deeper exploration, right? You get the context, you get the examples, the practical tools to actually apply those concepts.
And maybe depending on where you are in your leadership journey, you need different things.
Exactly.
Maybe the TED Talk sparks the initial interest, and then the book provides that roadmap for taking those ideas and turning them into action.
Absolutely. And speaking of taking action, another reviewer, they highlighted how the book resonated with them, not just in a professional context, but on a personal level. They were talking about how understanding their own why actually helped them make more fulfilling choices in all areas of their life.
I think that's so important because, sometimes we get caught up in that day-to-day grind and we lose sight of what truly matters to us. We're just going through the motions, checking things off the to-do list, but we're not really asking, why am I doing this in the first place?
And that's where Sinek's ideas become so powerful, because they're not just about leading a team or building a successful business. They're really about understanding your own motivations and living a life that's aligned with your values.
Okay, so how do we actually begin to uncover our personal why? It feels like such a big kind of abstract question.
It does. I think it might be helpful to think about it in terms of impact. Like, what kind of impact do you want to have on the world? What legacy do you want to leave behind?
It's almost like thinking about your eulogy, but in a positive way, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine someone giving a speech about your life. What would you want them to say? What qualities would you want to be remembered for?
Yeah.
What difference would you want to have made in the lives of others?
That's a really powerful way to frame it, because it forces you to think beyond the superficial and delve into that core of who you are and what you want to contribute to the world.
And that's where the real magic of starting with why lies, right? It's not just a marketing tactic or a leadership strategy. It's really a way of living a more purposeful and fulfilling life.
And I think that's something that we can all benefit from, no matter what our role is or what our goals are.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes, deep dives like this so valuable, right? It's not just about understanding Sinek's ideas. It's about applying them to our own lives and discovering how we can each make a difference.
I love that. It's not just what we do, it's about the ripple effect of our actions and the mark we leave on the world. But how does all of this tie back to leadership? I mean, if I'm not, the CEO of some Fortune 500 company, how does starting with why apply to me?
Well, and that's the beauty of it, really.
Yeah.
It's not just for the C-suite, right? Because if you think about it, leadership isn't confined to a title or a position. It's really about influence. Whether you're leading a team at work or heading up a volunteer project or even just trying to get your family to agree on a vacation destination,
Yeah.
you're leading in some capacity.
So even in those everyday situations, understanding why can make a difference.
Absolutely. Just think about it. Have you ever tried to convince someone to do something and it just felt like pushing a boulder uphill?
Oh, yeah.
And it's probably because you were so focused on the task at hand that you forgot to connect with them on the why. The reason it mattered, the bigger picture, the value it would bring.
Okay, yeah, I can totally see that. For example, if I'm trying to get my team to, adopt a new workflow, it's not enough to just tell them, hey, we're doing this now. I need to explain why it's beneficial, how it's going to make our lives easier, how it will ultimately help us achieve our shared goals.
Exactly. And by connecting with their why, their sense of purpose within the team, you're much more likely to get buy-in and genuine enthusiasm, right?
Yeah.
Rather than just grudging compliance.
This reminds me of another customer review that you flagged. It talked about how the book served as a reminder to start with why in, any endeavor. I think sometimes we get so caught up in the mechanics of things, the how-tos, the step-by-step instructions, that we forget to ask ourselves, why am I even doing this in the first place?
And that's a question that we should be asking ourselves constantly. It's like having this internal compass that keeps us on track. And if we can't articulate the why behind our actions, maybe it's time to reevaluate what we're doing and why we're doing it.
I think that's such a valuable insight, even beyond leadership, right? It can apply to our personal goals, our relationships, our hobbies, anything that we invest our time and energy into.
It's about intentionality,
Yeah.
right? Making sure that our actions are aligned with our values and our vision for our lives. And that's where the real power of, starting with why lies. It's not just about achieving success. It's about living a life of purpose and fulfillment.
For a while now, I've been thinking about kind of taking on a new project outside of work. And I've got a few ideas, swirling around, but I haven't really committed to anything. And I think a big part of that hesitation is that I haven't quite figured out the why yet. I know what I want to do, and I even have a pretty good idea of how to do it, but I haven't really connected with that deeper reason, that underlying purpose.
That's a great example, and it's actually a common obstacle. Sometimes the why isn't immediately obvious. It might take some reflection, some soul searching, some real digging deep to uncover it. But once you do, it can be incredibly motivating. It's like that missing piece of the puzzle that suddenly falls into place, and then everything becomes clear.
So if someone stuck. Like they know they want to make a change or pursue something new, but they can't quite pinpoint that why. Where should they even start?
Well, I'd encourage them to think about their values. Like what's truly important to them? What are their core beliefs? What kind of impact do they want to have on the world?
It's almost like creating like a personal mission statement, right?
Yeah.
A statement that just encapsulates their why, their guiding principles, their reason for being.
Yeah, and that can be such a powerful exercise. It can be really clarifying, and it can help you filter out distractions and stay focused on what truly matters.
You know, I think this whole conversation has been a good reminder that leadership isn't just about, barking orders or having all the answers. It's really about inspiring others, connecting with them on that deeper level, and helping them to kind of discover their own why.
Absolutely. And the most effective leaders are often those who are willing to be vulnerable, to share their own why, and to really create a space where others feel safe to do the same.
It's about fostering a culture of authenticity and purpose, where everyone feels like they're contributing to something bigger than themselves. And I think that's something that we can all strive for, regardless of our role or position.
That's a great point. It's not just about individual success, it's about collective impact. It's about creating a world where more people are living and working with a clear sense of purpose. And that's definitely something worth striving for.
So as we kind of wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought. We've talked a lot about the power of starting with why. But what if we flip that around? What if we ask, what if you don't start with why? What are the potential consequences of ignoring this fundamental principle?
Oh, that's a big question.
Yeah.
And I think the answer kind of varies depending on the context.
Yeah.
In some cases, it might lead to just a lack of motivation or direction.
Yeah.
Like if you're working on a project and you don't have that clear sense of why it matters, it can be really easy to just lose steam and give up when things get tough.
Totally. You're just going through the motion, not any real passion or drive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, especially in a business context, failing to start with why can ultimately lead to a disconnect with customers.
Right.
You might be able to sell a product or a service for a while, based on clever marketing or competitive pricing. But if you don't have that strong why underpinning your brand, you're unlikely to build that lasting loyalty.
Yeah, it's like building a house on a shaky foundation.
Exactly.
It might look good for a while, but eventually those cracks are going to start to show.
And that's why I think it's so important to keep coming back to the why, right? To revisit it regularly and to just make sure that it's still driving our actions and decisions.
Yeah, like checking in with your compass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not a one and done exercise.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process of discovery and alignment.
And I think sometimes as we grow and evolve, our why might actually evolve too.
Absolutely.
It's not this static thing. It can change and adapt as we gain new experiences and learn more about ourselves.
That's such a great point. And I think it's so important to be open to that evolution, right? To allow ourselves the space to question our why and to make adjustments as needed.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to you one last time. We've unpacked the golden circle. We've explored that idea of manipulation versus inspiration.
Yeah.
And we've delved into the importance of connecting with our own personal why.
It's a journey.
It is.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you hope our listener will take away from this whole conversation?
I really hope they'll walk away with a renewed sense of curiosity about their own why. I hope they'll be inspired to ask themselves some tough questions, and to really dig deep to uncover what truly drives them. And I hope they'll also remember that starting with why is not just a business principle. It's a philosophy that can really transform every aspect of their life, from their relationships to their careers to just their overall sense of purpose and fulfillment.
And I want to add to that, I hope our listener will remember that they have the power to make a difference. They don't have to be, a CEO or a world leader to have an impact. Their unique why, their passion, their talents, all of that can contribute to creating a better world. So go out there, explore your why, and let it guide you towards a life that's both meaningful and fulfilling. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning and keep asking more.
It can lead to some pretty significant consequences, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. If you're not starting with why, you're essentially operating in a vacuum.
Right.
You're making decisions, taking actions without that clear sense of purpose guiding you. And that can lead to all sorts of problems, from wasted time and resources to a lack of motivation and engagement to ultimately
Yeah, and I think in a world that's so full of distractions and competing priorities,
Right.
it's more important than ever to have that strong why to keep us grounded.
Right. Exactly. It's like that anchor that keeps us from drifting aimlessly.
So how can we ensure that we're staying true to our why? Like, we've talked about the importance of revisiting it regularly.
Right.
But are there any like practical steps we can take to make sure it's really informing our decisions and actions?
Yeah, I think one of the simplest but most effective things you can do is just to write it down.
Okay.
Like, actually articulate your why in a clear and concise way. And then, put it somewhere where you'll see it every day.
Yeah, like a vision board or something.
Exactly. Or you just a sticky note on your computer.
Right.
The point is to keep it top of mind so that you can constantly be checking in with yourself, and making sure that your actions are aligned with that deeper purpose.
And I think it's also important to share your why with others.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, talk to your team, your friends, your family about what drives you and why it matters to you. Because when you share your why with others, you're not only inviting them to connect with you on a deeper level, but you're also holding yourself accountable to actually living it out.
That's so true.
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately what it all comes down to, right? It's not just about finding your why, it's about embodying it in everything you do.
It's about making it the driving force behind your actions and decisions, your relationships, your work, your life.
Exactly. And when you do that, when you truly live your why, that's when you unlock that incredible power to inspire others and to make a real difference in the world.
Well said. And I think that's the perfect note to end on. So to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Start With Why.
Yes, thank you.
We hope you found it insightful and inspiring. And remember, the journey of discovering and living your why is an ongoing one. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep striving to make a positive impact on the world.